Hi there, and welcome to this demonstration in which we're going to add an outpost building to the island scene that you've already created, and then make some changes to that outpost building so that the door to the building will open when you approach it and will close when you walk away from it. So let's get to it. In order to complete this lesson, you'll need to make sure that you have imported the book assets Unity package that came with the book and that also is available as a downloadable link from the course Blackboard site. So if you haven't done that already, please do so. Once you have imported the book assets Unity package, it will appear in your project window as a folder labeled Book Assets. To get started, expand that folder, and inside you'll see that there are three subfolders: Models, Sounds, and Textures. In this demo we're going to use two of these folders, Models and Sounds, beginning with the Models folder. So please expand that folder. Inside you'll see a collection of objects that you can try out by dragging them out into your game view. We're going to work first with the Outpost object. Before we drag a copy of that Outpost object out into our island, we're going to make a couple of changes to the import settings for that object. So if you have it selected in your project view, look over at the inspector and make the following changes. In the book chapter about this lesson, the author of the book goes into much greater detail about each of the settings. In this demonstration, to keep things short and to keep them simple, I'm only going to make the changes that are required to make it work and ask that you use the book chapter for more information about each. The things we're going to change in the import settings, first is the scale factor. We can use this to cause Unity to import the original model at a size bigger or smaller than the model was created initially, and we're going to set our scale factor to 1.5, so it's going to be 1.5 times as large as the original model. We're also going to choose to generate colliders. This will allow our Outpost model to react to collisions by the player. It's handy in that it will make it so the player can't walk through the walls of the building or sink through the floor of the building. It will act more like a real-world object. Finally, we're going to scroll down through the inspector to the section on animations. When the Outpost building model was created in a 3D modeling environment originally, it was created with an animation that would indeed show the door opening and show the door closing. And that animation in the 3D modeling environment took place over a number of frames in an animation timeline. When we import the model into Unity, we need to let Unity know that that animation exists, and we need to tell Unity when each animation begins in terms of a frame number and when each animation ends in terms of a frame number. So let's go ahead and do that now. In the inspector, if you come down to the animations portion of the screen, to the table where it says name, start, end, wrap mode, and loop. To add an animation as part of the import with a beginning and an end frame, you'll click on the little plus arrow, and you'll see that Unity automatically enters in an animation called idle, which is handy because our door animation has an idle state, which is its default closed state. We need to tell Unity which frame that animation begins, which is 1, as Unity suggests, but the end frame is 2. And then the wrap mode is default. It's going to play in the default way that it was originally designed. Again, the book will go into more explanation about the different types of wrap mode. The most common ones are default, or once, or loop. Now we're going to add a second animation, and we're going to call that one door shut, all one word, lowercase. The start frame for the door shut animation is also 1. And the end frame is 15. And The other settings will just stay what their default is. And we're going to add a final animation. And you may have guessed it's going to be called door shut. All lowercase, a single word. Its start animation begins on frame 16, as Unity guessed correctly, but its end point is going to be frame 31. And then we'll leave the rest of the settings as is. Once we have all of these settings ready to go, we need to apply them to that Outpost object. So you'll click on the Apply button in the inspector window. Now our output object is ready to put out into our island scene. For the demo and for your assignment, please put the Outpost building close to your player, your first-person controller. To do that, you'll want to sort of zoom in close on your first-person player. Now I'm looking pretty close to mine now, so I don't have to adjust anything. I can simply drag my Outpost from the project folder and put it out somewhere close to my first-person controller, and now it's in my scene. For the purposes of this demonstration, to make your work a little easier, I suggest that you leave the rotation value, the Y rotation value, for your Outpost building at 0. You'll see if I change it, I can rotate around the building on the island so that it faces different directions. And when you're actually creating your own virtual worlds, you can, of course, make this be whatever you want. Just for the purposes of the demo, to make things a little easier, let's leave it at 0. Now we've got the building out into the island. Let's give a quick look at how it works when we hit play. You're going to hear atmospheric noise, which is probably going to be pretty loud, but you'll see what happens. So it works as you expect. Because we added colliders when we imported the object, we can walk up to it and collide against that door, but the door doesn't open for us. And that's what we're going to take care of next. The first step to making that door function is really sort of a bonus step that you don't actually have to do, but will allow your door to function in a more efficient manner. What we're going to do is expand out the Outpost object in the hierarchy view. So now we're expanding the object that is the copy we see here on the island itself, not the one that's inside the project view. So in the hierarchy view, expand the Outpost object, and then select the door child object that is a part of that larger object. And I'm going to zoom in on my door so you can see it a little bit better here. There's the door object right there. Now you'll notice that it has a mesh collider attached to that door object. What we're going to do as this sort of bonus step, we're going to replace that mesh collider with a box collider. And the main reason is that box colliders are more efficient for the processor in Unity to be able to detect collisions. It's faster, essentially. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got my door selected in the Outpost object, and I'm going to go up to Component and choose Physics, and then choose Box Collider. When I do this, because I already have a collider attached to that door object, Unity is going to check to make sure I really want to get rid of the one that's on there now and replace it with a box collider, and I'm going to say yes. When I do that, it's a little difficult to see, but I now have a box collider that it matches the size and the position of the door object. It's the thing in the faint green line you see around here. If I click on different views, it's a little easier to see where that is. Okay. Now we're going to add one more collider to our scene. This time, though, we're going to add the collider to the Outpost building itself. So select the Outpost object in your hierarchy view and do what you just did a moment ago. Now we're going to go to Component, Physics, and one more time Box Collider. So think about what we've just done. We have a box collider applied to the door, the child object, and then we have a collider applied to the outpost object, really applying it to the topmost level of that outpost object. Now you'll note that it's sort of hard to see, but if you look on your screen, or look on my screen in this demonstration, you'll see down at the bottom, here's this faint green square down here. If I turn my view to the side, you'll see it here. It's also a little hard to see against the backdrop here. What we need to do is we're going to resize and reposition this box collider. And what we're setting up here is we want to set up a collision zone around the door. And the idea will be that when a player walks up and hits that collision zone in front of the door, the collision zone will detect the fact that the player has hit it, and that's going to trigger a script which opens the door. Then when the player leaves that collision zone, it will also be detected and the door will shut. In order to resize and reposition this box collider, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard. And when you hold down the Shift key, you'll notice now that there are little squares along the edges and in the center of this box collider. These allow you to directly manipulate the shape and size of that box collider, which is what we're going to do right now. I'm going to take the box collider and I want to position the front of it just in front of the bottom step leading into the outpost. And so that's so that the player will walk up, and when they reach the stairs, it will detect that they're there and the door will open. Similarly, we're going to raise the top of that box collider. Oh, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, but you could, just for appearances, I'll put it near the top of the door. And then the inside, or the back of that box collider, we're going to place just inside the door. You want to make it so that the player doesn't have to go very far into the outpost before the door shuts, and you want them to have to come fairly close to the door before it opens. So we've got the positioning and the size just about right here. Maybe I'll raise the bottom so it meets with the bottom of the step. Again, this doesn't matter particularly in this case. Really the main pieces are the front here and the back. However, we don't know how wide that box collider is, and it's likely that at 1 meter, which was its default size, it's going to be narrower than the door. So I'm going to change my view from the left view that I'm looking at now to the front view. And as you'll see, here's our box collider, and it is a bit narrow. So again, I'll hold down the Shift key, and I'll stretch that collider out so that it covers the space of the door. Once you have it positioned correctly, and you can look at different views of the box collider to make sure that it's looking the way you like. Once you have it positioned the way you want, you need to do one more thing to this box collider to make it work the way we want as a collision zone, a trigger zone, to allow the door to open. Right now, it is a collider, which means that even though the player can't see it, when they approach the door, they're going to hit a wall, an invisible wall in front of that door. And in fact, that invisible wall would prevent them from entering the building even if the door opens. So we need to change the way this box collider works by turning it into a trigger. And we do that by looking in the inspector with the outpost object selected, and go down to the box collider section and select the box that says is trigger. What this will do is it will make it so that the player can actually walk through that. They won't collide against it, but the collider will still pick up the fact that the player has collided with it and can then perform an action based on that collision. So now we're getting somewhere. We've got our collider around our door, and we've got our trigger area, which is this collider near the door. Now we need to add some scripts that are actually going to make all of this work. When you are doing this assignment, you should look on the Blackboard site under the Unity Units section and Unit 4, And in that section you will find that I've placed the code for 2 scripts. But let's go ahead and create those scripts now, and I'll paste in that code to show you how it works. Under the project window, click on the Create drop-down box and choose JavaScript. Once you've done that, I want you to rename the script that you've just created into Trigger Zone. And once you've renamed it, double-click on it to open it up in MonoDevelop, and then we can paste in the code that you need to make this Trigger Zone script work. Let me resize my scripting window so you can see what I'm doing. So here I am looking at my Trigger Zone script, and I'm going to grab the code for that script, and I'm going to get rid of everything that's in the script already, and I'm going to then paste in the code that I want to use. So let me show you quickly where I'm grabbing this. So here I am in my ASU, and I'll go into the class Blackboard site. I'll come to Unity Units, Unit 4, and scroll down to see where the scripts are. Just a moment. Here's the Trigger Zone, that's the one we're working on now, and we're going to have one called Door Manager as well. So I'm going to click on the Triggered Zone script, and it will show me the code. I'll select that and copy it, come into my script here and paste it in, and hit Save, and then close up MonoDevelop and come back into my Unity project. So now I have that Trigger Zone script, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that Trigger Zone script to the Outpost object, and I can do that in 2 ways. I can either drag it and drop it on top of the object in the scene, or I can drag it up and drop it on top of the object in the hierarchy. So I'll drag it up onto the object in the hierarchy and release. Now when I click on that Outpost object and look at the inspector, you'll see it has added the Trigger Zone script, which takes no public variables, so there's nothing to modify here. Now we need to make one more script. So one more time, let's go to Create and JavaScript. And this script we're going to call Door Manager. Rename the script and double-click to open it inside MonoDevelop. And just as you did a moment ago, come to the Blackboard site, locate under the Unity Units Unit 4 folder, Door Manager script, click on it, and then you'll see a somewhat longer hunk of code that you can copy and paste into the Door Manager script, save that script, and come back into Unity. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this Door Manager script that we've just created, and we're going to apply it to the Door Child object inside our Outpost object. Before we apply it, there's one more change I want to make to this Door object. When we approach the door, and then again when we leave the vicinity of the door, we want to have a nice sound effect, a door opening and a door closing sound effect. And we in fact have included some code in the Door Manager script that is going to accept audio clips as variables and then play those clips. But in order for the door to be able to play an audio clip, we have to add one more component to it. So let's do that now. Select the door in the hierarchy, come up to Component, choose Audio, and then choose Audio Source. When you do that, you'll notice that now over in the inspector there is an area called Audio Source here. For other uses, you could directly add an audio clip by dragging one from your project over to the audio clip variable. But in our case, we're going to assign the sound clips that go with that door through code. So let's do that now. Come down to your door manager script in the project view, and we're going to drag that script up onto the door child object in the hierarchy. And release. When I do that, now I can look at the inspector and I'll see that there it is. I now have that door manager script, and you'll notice that there are 3 public variables associated with the door manager script. There's a door open time, which is how long it's going to take for the door to open. There's a door open sound and a door shut sound, which currently have no sound associated with them. So let's find that sound that we want to use and apply it to the script. Come back to the project view, to your book assets folder, and again open it up. This time we're going to go into the sounds subfolder and scroll through this long collection of sounds to find the door open and the door shut sounds. Drag each of those sounds to its appropriate variable. There's door open and there's door shut. So now we're very close to having all of the pieces together for our project to be able to open and close that door. There's one more thing we need to do though before it's going to work. And to explain that, I want to show you the trigger zone script. In the trigger zone script, it has only one function, which is onTriggerEnter. And just as the name of the function implies, this is a script that is going to execute when the first-person controller bumps up against that invisible trigger area, when it enters that invisible trigger area. And what you'll see in here is that there's a little piece of code right here that says if the thing that bumps up against that trigger zone has a tag of player, if we've given a tag to the first-person controller and named it essentially player, or more correctly, we've tagged it player, then it's going to send us a message to the door child object that's part of that Outpost object, and the message is going to be door check, which is the name of a function that we've attached as part of the door manager script. So in order for this to work, we need to name that first-person controller game object, or rather we need to tag that first-person controller game object with the name player. So let's do that now. Come back out into Unity and select your first-person controller. And if you look over at the inspector, there's a place right under the name of the object labeled tag. And currently it's untagged. However, if you click on it, you will have a predefined tag that is automatically generated by Unity called player, and you'll want to select that. Now we should be all set to go to run our project. So let's save what we've done so far, save your scene, and then click on play, and let's see if it works. Aha. Okay, we'll see that in my script there's something that's not quite right. So let's take a look. The animation state door open cannot be played because it can't be found. So let's go back and take a look at our original object. Here in models, we're going to come down to Outpost, and I suspect it's a misspelling. So let's come down to our names of our objects, expand this out, and you'll notice what I've brilliantly done is I've typed door shut and door shut. So let's change that first one to door open. Make sure the second one is door shut. Come down and apply. save our scene one more time. Now let's try it again. And that works pretty much like I would like it to. I think that the trigger area for the inside of the door to me seems a little tight, and so I might expand it out just a little bit farther back into the building. So you'll want to do the same thing. Save your scene, hit play and test it. If you're like me, you may find that one or more things do not work. Then you'll go back and looking at the error messages you receive, make changes to your scene to make sure it works, and then once it's functional, you can make other changes to your scene just to make it the look and feel of it more to your liking. And that's it for this lesson. For your assignment, you'll want to do exactly what we've just done here. Make sure it's all functioning at the end. Make any other modifications to it you'd like to make it more interesting if you have time. And then save it out as a Unity web player file and submit the web player file and the HTML file to the Blackboard site for your assignment. So thanks a lot for watching, and that's the end of this demonstration.